All right, okay.
We won't cut Rory short.
I haven't planned this, so I don't know whether it's 30 minutes or not. Like most projects, you know, it got a plan, but we'll see what happens. Now, my coat is an homage to Tom yesterday. I was very impressed with that white coat, and it took me back to working in a lab many years ago, and he spoke a lot of the stuff that's in my era. So I related very much. I don't know how old he is, and I can tell you how old I am, but probably quite similar. And so I wanted to wear this because it hasn't come out. It's the only thing I had that looked like a white coat. But I haven't had this out since in the late 90s, when I was privileged to do my MSc in software engineering at Oxford. Now, not at Oxford Brookes, but at Oxford. And I very rarely tell people about this, but it was my pleasure to do that. I did feel privileged because IBM paid for it. And they were trying to retrain me as a software engineer when our hardware mission that I'd put all my efforts into being a hardware engineer just went out of the window. And I was left with no career. So talk about portfolio careers. I started that, I think. I also probably started the feminist movement as well, but you know, who knows? I've got an engineering degree. Anyway, now I am a sort of straddling project and coach, and I'm not at all an academic, all right? So again, very privileged to do a professional doctorate, very proud to have done that. Again, IBM and my pension paid for that because they got rid of me in 2005, or at least I was very smart to get on top of their kind of a redundancy program. And as you all know, project managers are always having to fight for their place in life because we're overhead, aren't we? We don't produce anything, so we don't have value. So we're always exposed to being got rid of, and you can always get a younger version in, unless you've got something that you do. What can you say that you do? So this talk is a complete opposite to Rob's. So strategy, I'm down at soft skills, what you really, down at the brass tacks of what we do every day. But I am sort of in this ballpark of simulation. So as a hardware engineer, very much into simulation and test pattern generation many, many moons ago. So virtual reality for me is the right thing. You have to put people in a position to get them to feel it. So my plan, hopefully it's going to work, is I'm going to put you in the position of actually having a responsible conversation. Now, how does that, everyone feel happy about actually being put in that position? So hopefully that might help you answer some of these questions, because I'm going to ask you what actually you're going to do. So my claim to be here, again, another privilege to be here, thank you, Karen, for inviting me, is because I've done this professional doctorate, and this is where I've been straddling between project management and coaching. So in 2005, I joined the coaching world, which is very ethical, you know, as the professionals are out there trying to do their very, very best, including about climate change. And I was always a bit skeptical. You know, my engineering and project management hat on makes me very skeptical about it. And I got into doing this doctorate and this topic because I thought coaching was very one-sided. It's all about, well, I'll tell you in a minute what it's all about, coaching. But my position is that coaching is actually a very good model for soft skills, and my thesis showed that, even though that wasn't the intention of it. My intention was to help project managers improve their soft skills, and coaching practice was a model for them to do it. But something else came out of it, which was quite useful. So, who knows about coaching? It's everywhere. So, everyone familiar with this kind of a definition? Hands up if you know about coaching. So I'm teaching old dogs. Not too many then. Not too many. Right, well, okay, coaching practice then. Important things. So this is the ICF definition. It's partnering. So fundamentally, coaching came about as a one-to-one conversation, working together, partnering with clients. Now, in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires people, all right, to maximise their personal and professional potential. All right, I've got some diagrams in a minute, we'll come on to that. My question is, can we knock out coach practice and say RPM practice is partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximise their personal and professional, not potential perhaps, but responsibility? How does that work for you? So in a normal coaching environment, there's a coach and a coachee and a relationship between them, which is agreed. All right, so that, for me, the most important thing about coaching is that it's an agreed conversation. There's a basis for that relationship, and that relationship's really important. The coach uses skills, so soft skills, this is the idea, and the coachee gets benefits. Now, my thesis was all about, no, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in that coach. They're using skills. I don't think project managers have all those skills. Some do, but a lot don't, all right? Because they're pressured, stressed, they have to get the job done on time, under budget, and all that stuff, meet people's requirements. You're under pressure. Soft skills, you haven't got time for. A bit like responsibility, you haven't got time for. What my thesis showed, and admittedly it was a small action research study, and I used pragmatism, so you can challenge me, that's not real research, just 7 of them. But each one of these 7 were given a coachee, and all they did was got to know their coachee, made a relationship, and negotiated to do 6 coaching sessions with them for an hour each. So over 6 months. So it was a lot of work for a research participant, to be honest. So they were very good to do this for me. But in the scheme of things, not much coaching practice. So they had a day's training, which was great. They invested in that as well. But, you know, an hour a month over 6 months, plus the time to kind of set up the conversations, but not a lot of practice. But what they found was that this coaching relationship influenced them in multiple ways, and their soft skills for sure changed. All right, but not only did the skills change, which was my intention, there were other things that changed. So what happened was the relationships particularly changed. As well. So there's something about mindset and creating partnerships with people that changed. Now, just to put this in context now, coaching is everywhere in organisations, supposedly. If you're in an organisation, now you have 3-way contracting. So if you're a coach and you come in from the outside, there's 3-way contracting you've got to have. So not only must the coachee get benefits, but the organisation must get benefits. And you and I could discuss managerial coaching afterwards. You know, there's lots of debate whether managers can actually coach or not, because they're codependent on their employees, and they're not really interested in development of employees, as I'll show in a minute. But that is a dilution of benefit targeting. So because the organisation wants benefits, not just the coachee. So there's a bit of a tussle. So the coachee normally, if they're looking for coaching, they're looking for growth, looking for their personal development. They might want a bit of support, confidence boosting, that sort of thing. But an organisation is out there wanting performance primarily. But actually, things like retention of staff, that can be an argument for actually putting some more effort into development of people. Now, this was the important thing from my thesis, and what came out, that coaching, for me, has shown me that coaching does give a lot of insight to soft skills. Now, if you look in the literature on soft skills, it's a mess. People say there's no definition of what they are. Does they include traits? Does it include emotional intelligence? Lots and lots of debates. So what I came up with was this circular argument, circular kind of in concentric circles. So the outer circle is dependent on the skills in the inner circle. And probably right in the middle are your traits. And behind all this, if you like, right in the corner, is an individual's traits, attitudes, motivations, that sort of thing. But what coaching has shown me, and obviously the participants demonstrated this, but I've surmised this through abduction, so use of pragmatism, and you can argue that I couldn't possibly know a project manager's intentions, but through abduction I'm arguing that the intentions from coaching were transferred into the workplace for these project managers, at least some of them. And soft skills need intentions. They don't make sense unless you've got an intention behind them. So that was, for me, quite an insight. And personal skills, so they're thinking skills, maybe, reflection, controlling yourself, that sort of thing. But the inner layer is all about communication and relating. So the relationship stuff is in there. And some of the literature complains about communication not being very clear. And that's because coaching tells you that they're connected. Communication and relationships are connected. And you can't really think about what communication without thinking about relationships. So I've put them in together, and there's a bit of self-management in there. So whenever you're in conversation with people, you are relating, you're managing yourself, and you are communicating. And everything else in interpersonal skills, which people talk about, so coaching, collaborating, directing, supporting, social, for me, they've all got an intent. You can just in the language, sometimes people say managing, I've got to manage conflict. There's an intent associated with that soft skill. And you have to do all of those soft skills through conversation. So that's the thesis. Just putting those together, what's interesting for me is that if you put two of these together, now two people have got intentions, two individuals. So how do you correlate intentions in people's mind? Well, you have to, for consensus, you need to share intention if you're going to collaborate. So there must be something you're going to collaborate on. And you need to define what that shared intention is in order to work together. So a project manager and a colleague in a work relationship is very similar. But project managers showed me that they were much more supportive generally with their colleagues, and they started to assert responsibility in their team members. All right. So whenever there's a problem, instead of trying to solve it for themselves, the project manager would actually assert responsibility and encourage others to be empowered to fix. And I'm sure there are lots of organisations that do that. But these project managers were quite individual, and it was new to them. They just hadn't felt that it had permission to take time out and be attentive and listen and those sort of things. And particularly, it was all about facilitation of work goals when they were more supportive. So their listening was very much more focused. They stopped thinking about all the other things they had to do in the next meeting they had to go to. Say, I have to concentrate when they were coaching people. I can't think about anything else. I just have to concentrate on this coachee. So that's what they learned from coaching practice, and to take that back to work, now I'm listening to people. I actually give them time to think and to reflect what they want to say to me, and then I get more information back in status meetings. They also took a step back, which you have to do when you're a coach. You have to let the other person decide what they want and where they want to go. It's not about your agenda. It's totally about the other person's agenda. And so they were trying very hard. You could see these project managers were trying to get team members to do that a lot more. And what they noticed was that people would buy in a lot more when they were contributing more. Coach, there were 2 project managers that possibly were coaching, but actually they only got to really coach, I would argue, when they had delegated something, they had some shared intention, and then they were truly collaborating because they were working together in partnership. And as I say, the coaching definition is that. So, a little bit of role play then. So Robert, can I borrow you?
Yeah, of course.
So I want you to think about some typical relationships. So I've asked Robert if he would be my customer and I'm the barista in Costa. So I'm going to try and do this. I'm not very good at role play, but we'll see how it goes. So, yes, hello.
Hello.
Can I help?
Yes. Could I have a coffee, please?
What kind of coffee would you like?
An espresso.
Okay. Right, so that'll be so-and-so. So what do you notice about our relationship?
There's a counter in the way.
There isn't one, is there? Would you say there is a relationship?
No.
I hardly smiled, did I? So, was that a double espresso you wanted?
No, single.
Okay. So, what does that say to you about me and the relationship so as the barista? Maybe. Okay, good one. Anything else?
Pretty transactional.
It's transactional. I wasn't listening either. Okay. So let's try again. So come up again. Oh, hi, Robert. Your usual?
Hello, Shirley.
Would you like your usual this morning?
Yes,
So I go off and get the espresso. So what's that like?
You're starting with a relationship. There must be a relationship there.
Exactly. Now, my better half loves going to his local Costa because the lady behind the desk chats to him and knows exactly what he wants. He doesn't have to even ask, and he just loves it. It's because they then can go on and have a conversation about something else. That's the point. Because he's had that bit of a relationship at the beginning, he can go and take that next step and have a longer conversation. So really important. Thank you. So let's just imagine now that you... well done, Robert. So,
Shirley, I'll just share that when we picked up Rob this morning and we drove up towards the car park, I just wound the window down. He said, "Good morning, how are you?" And he said, "You're in Bay 13, unless you don't want to go in Bay 13. And we said, "No, that's fine." So again, there's a relationship. They knew who I was because I come here often enough. So well done, Bournemouth University.
So just as a matter of interest, so can you just imagine now that you're the area manager and you're sat in the room for that relationship? Which do you want as the area manager of Costa?
Two.
You want want to have the relationship, even though it might take longer.
It's repeat business.
Loyal.
Rather than lost business.
Okay.
With a selfish profit hat on.
Okay. So would I be selling up after that? You know, would I be taking advantage of that relationship now?
It depends on your knowledge of that relationship. You might already have had those conversations in the past and you know that it won't work. But you know, would you like a pastry with that this morning? I'd say a bacon sarnie, but they don't sell them. So.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So let's try another one then. So doctor-patient. So I'm not going to pick on Robert this time, but can you imagine going in? Can you imagine going into your doctor? All right. So you know, maybe I'll just pick on Karen. So I'm the doctor. I'm looking at my screen, and she's come and sit down. Come and sit down. That's right. And I'm looking at my screen. How can I help you today?
Espresso.
Same barista movement. So,
Unusual.
no, come on. What's the problem today?
Oh, well.
Right, so I would say myself that doctors and patients, even though there is a doctor-patient relationship, unless you're going to say usual, there isn't really a relationship, is there? Especially if I'm looking at my computer screen. Now, some of you might disagree because you go to the doctors a lot. Who goes to the doctors a lot?
How do you define a lot?
Well, enough to have a relationship.
I go every year.
Okay, do you feel you have a relationship?
I did with the, when Neil McLaughlin was there, yes. But these days, probably less so.
Dr.
Yeah.
Neil.
So it depends who it is, doesn't it? I mean, in
Yeah,
our
it does,
practice,
yeah.
it depends whether I see the people I know
Yeah.
as friends outside. Or...
So let's just open it. So it's not just about the relationship. What about intentions when you go to the doctors then? So can you put yourself into the position of the doctor? What's the doctor's intentions, would you say?
Whatever it is, 8 minutes per customer.
Get you out in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, you 10 minutes. They're working to government-imposed timeline.
Right, okay. So I think if there were doctors in the room, they'd be going, oh, no, that's not true. I can't imagine that they would put that across as their prime reality.
You didn't ask if it was their prime.
Fair. Most of the times I've gone to the doctor, they've made a point of asking, I've said I want X, Y, Z. They've asked, is there anything else while you're here?
Right.
It's your surgery, on the side out.
I've got a slightly dodgy toenail at the moment. Would you mind looking at that?
Wow, I can't get my doctor beyond one point on my list. But then I'm not a very social person, so not very good at making good relationships, believe it or not. So baristas are my nightmare because they'll ignore me and go and serve somebody else.
Oh, yeah, well, I've always been Mr. Invisible at the bar, yeah.
Yeah. So, but the doctors, Paul, you're making a relationship, I would suggest, and you maybe have an intention to be nice. Well, I probably have an intention that this doctor's a bloody waste of time and it's going to take 10 minutes for me. All right. So, what I'm really asking is, what's the shared intention between doctor and patient?
You'd like to think it was to make the patient better, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but do I go with that intention in mind? Do I go with the intention of explaining all my issues, or I'm sitting there in my head, 10 minutes, what can I get out of him in 10 minutes?
Depends who you are.
Yeah, yes it does.
Some people are very lonely and go too regularly.
Might just be some reassurance.
Yeah.
Just don't worry about it, it's okay. Still go.
Yeah, exactly. But I wonder, who has to kind of make that space for contracting the shared intention. The point about coaching is it's contracted. I actually, when I have a client, sorry?
Are you talking about a formal contract?
For,
A written, signed, or...
there's always one of those, especially in the three-way one, but there's a psychological contract as well. But we actually try and talk about it at every session to remind people, because especially people new to coaching, they don't understand what their responsibilities are as a coachee. All right, so they need reminding. We're meeting. Do we agree we're meeting at this frequency? What kind of feedback would you like? How do you think how do you think our relationship's going? How would you like it to change?
Like supervising dissertation students.
Yes, exactly. So maybe thinking you're about teacher-student then, or lecturer-student, would be a good one for you. What are your intentions in that relationship?
To help them and support them.
Okay.
If it's a dissertation, to help them support them.
Knowledge transfer.
Right, and okay. And the student's intention? Can you put yourself in this position of a student? Do you know what their intentions are?
I used to talk about football at first.
There is a knowledge transfer.
Okay, so student just says, I want you to teach me. Tell me everything.
No, they want knowledge, they don't want to be taught.
Well, I certainly didn't.
They just want a chip in their brain that gives them all the answers.
Yeah.
Am I going in the right direction? Am I sort of
Yeah.
am I reading the right stuff?
Yeah.
reassurance then? So
Yeah.
It is reassurance, but having said that, I mean, you know, when I was doing my doctorate, I was way, way older than most students.
Yeah.
I might have had a completely different requirement or, you know.
Yeah.
sometimes they're looking for instruction,
Yeah,
have to
sometimes
shift
it is,
shift the intention.
Yeah. So we could talk, because you're all into that, just think about that. How do you have the conversations with students about how that teacher-student relationship works? If you think, you know, you could think about a parent or some other person that's interested in that relationship as well. What's important to the broader social world, to the university, to the parent or payer of the students' fees, maybe. But more important, responsible project managers and their stakeholders, how do you contract for that conversation? And it'd be really nice to have a go at that over lunch. We probably don't have time for now, but if you could do it in pairs over lunch and just have it as a practice of how you would actually open up that conversation, might be very interesting. Thinking about the wider world. How do you, and can you contract for a conversation about responsibility? Yeah, so, and is community the right third broader party, if you like, to that conversation? Who needs to be ensuring, if you like, or pulled into the ensuring that the project manager's having that conversation with stakeholders and challenging everyone's responsibility in a way. Much like we challenge everybody on their responsibility to tell us their estimated task completion dates. You know, we're expecting everyone to be responsible and giving us good answers. But all the project managers in the room will know that you have to have a little black book on the people that are telling you the numbers, because sometimes you have to double the numbers they're telling you or triple the numbers they're telling you. Or at least take them on one side and have a different conversation from what they might tell you in the room. Okay. So just to go back to coaching for a second to summarise, it's a contractual relationship. There's trust there. We talk about how coaching works. We talk about coaching responsibilities a lot. There's quite a bit of debate about whether a coach gives information or not. But fundamentally, we try not to in most cases because the coachee tends only to take things in that's on the periphery of their awareness. So if you talk about something off at a tangent, it's not helpful in the minute, in the moment or in the specific discussion you're having. So you have to go to the other person's place or the coachee's place of understanding to have a proper conversation. But also the coach has characteristics, so you have to explain how you work and make sure that's going to work for both of you. Obviously we talk about admin. The most important thing is the rapport. So there is definitely a connection that's working. Respect and trust, that was mentioned in my thesis. So these things are why communication and relationship have to go together. There are linkages in these regards. So if you think communication isn't working, then it's because these are filters stopping communication happening, probably. I like to put honesty, but that's a bit of Shirley. Coaching asks for an honest conversation, but obviously you can't be sure that anyone's ever honest. But that's the ideal you're trying to get to. But attention is very, very important for listening, and I quite often do listening exercises to listen and say nothing, just as practice. There's a lot of debate too about empathy, but I would just give you a bit of caution on empathy because it's everywhere. You can show empathy, but you can't. In my book, you cannot step into someone else's shoes. So don't think you can be empathetic with exactly how they're feeling. You are only imagining you've got empathy from your own understanding. So much better to ask questions and do interpretive listening rather than think you're doing empathetic listening, please. That's a Shirley plea for a bit of understanding on that one. But definitely show empathy. So, but that's back to attention and having rapport. So I think that's me done as a bit of summary. I encourage you to practice having those conversations just as a buddy pair, because that will put you in the mindset of getting the relationship going for a proper, responsible conversation. Questions? Doesn't stop me.
Okay, well, no. I want to thank Shirley for those insights into her work. For me, that's very refreshing because you've brought us full circle back to one of our starting points, which is about the fact that professionalisation of project management is partly about acknowledging that responsibility to the wider community and to the society.
Yep.
So I think that was brilliant. So we'll have a couple of minutes on questions. So it looks like Roger's keen to ask a question.
Robert, ask a question.
Roger.
Yesterday, Karen mentioned do no harm.
Yes.
The medical oath.
Yes.
And I love that saying because it sort of turns the funnel around from being reductionism of 10 things to turn the funnel around. It's everything to do with it. It's really tidy. With the APM, we live in a world where all projects succeed. It's an aspiration.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, two things, if I can get two questions in. One is there an equivalent oath for coaching? As tight as do no harm. Is there a strapline for coaching?
The strapline for coaching, I don't know off the top of my head. We certainly have a code of ethics. But the onus of responsibility lies with the coachee. So, yes, there's definitely no harm, confidentiality, all those kind of things, but they always have caveats, and everyone, there's no no legal kind of requirements for coaching. It's a bit unregulated, so you're a bit open to that. But certainly coaches would never want to do any harm, but what they try to do is make sure the coachee's responsible for everything, and they understand their responsibilities, and they only go to what the coachee's able to do. Yeah.
So there's a power difference between them then?
Yeah, the coachee's trying to take the power away. They're trying not to be a leader, not to give direction. That's the aim. Of course, managers are that's why they have difficulty with it. So coaching gets massaged in different genres. So it gets difficult, and definitions like management, leadership, it's all very muddy.
I'll do a second question, but I'll do mine over lunch.
Okay, Rob.
I was thinking about the relationships and the intentions, and again, my mind is thinking forward a little bit and scalability of those sorts of things. So in my world, we talk about relationships with our clients and the services we offer to our clients, and we use the phrase trusted advisor quite a lot.
Right.
And there's a bit when I think about how things are going to evolve over time that feels like it's under threat, that model, because trusted advisor feels very subjective, very relationship based, very almost sort of tailored. And if you sort of scale up in the future, the term that I come across every now and again is trusted advisor being replaced with reliable solution. And so something that's not a one-off tailored, something that you know is reliable enough to be scalable and delivered often in the future.
Right.
And rather than an advisor that's sort of tinkering around the sort of the fringes, something that's just an outcome, an impact, a solution. And philosophically, that makes me kind of think what my role will be as a project manager influencing clients and projects. And I imagine the stuff that I'm doing that will be replaced with reliable solutions will still allow me space to do some sort of trusted advisory work, in a more strategic space. But I'm kind of wondering whether that's something that you think about in terms of coaching, how that might change in the future, sort of the contract between coach and coachee.
Yeah, well, I think you need to talk to a few executive coaches. I'm a doing person. I am only interested in people who do work because I'm interested in the production of things, whereas executive coaches who believe in this really kind of professionalism of coaches, they're trying to help leaders and be more kind of self-aware of things. So it's not command and control. Coaches are definitely against command and control and about self-responsibility, and they're trying to drive that all the time. So, yeah, you need to talk to them about how they guide leaders. And I don't know if they do any leading. I'm a little. Sometimes I get sceptical about the whole coaching philosophy because they seem to be guiding leaders and encouraging leaders to coach, but actually coaching is not a leading thing. It is a following thing. Because if you've got a coach in front of you and they've got an issue or they've got a goal and they want to move to that goal, it's their goal, and how they get there and how their mind works to get there, you have to follow their meanderings. And so it's nothing to do with me or what I think, and I have to keep my stuff out of the way. Otherwise, I'm interpreting what they're saying all the time in the wrong way because I can't see inside their brain. Now, if executive coaches are actually teaching leaders to do that, then they might coach in the right way for me. But, it's idealistic in a way. But it's trying to talk to how people's brains works and how their body works too. So all this mindfulness and stuff and resilience, it's all about getting people to take responsibility about how they're feeling and actually expressing what they're feeling, or being aware of what they're feeling and controlling, not saying it if it's something they don't feel is responsible to say at this time. It's about self-management as well as being open. Am I making sense?
Well, it was a totally vague question, so I think you did quite a good job of responding.
But yeah, by all means, I've not had the privilege of being an executive coach, although some people say, Shirley, you are. 'Cause I do supervise people occasionally who call themselves executive coaches, but they tend to be going down this purist view of coaching, and they're trying very hard to balance the command and control in organisations to a more autonomous, self-responsible drive. But, I don't know. I haven't met all of them, and there's millions of coaches out there all doing different things.
Okay, one very final question then. I'm really put you on the spot now. Any advice for Phil Neville this morning after the not crushing defeat, it wasn't at all, but having set themselves up saying defeat tomorrow he'll consider that a failure. How is he as a coach for the women's English football team going to respond this morning when they did get defeated?
So I'm going to go back to my trampoline coaching days to support my daughter. I got into trampoline coaching many moons ago. Yeah. So sports coaching for me is slightly different. Slightly, not that much, but slightly. And yeah, boosting the morale of people that have just lost, and even though they...
Especially as he said, it would be failure. Anyway,
it also didn't help when he said it didn't help when we were a man down.
Yeah.
A woman down.
Yeah.
They said man down. He said it didn't help when we were
Down
a
to
man
10
down.
at the end.
Oh, well, everyone's a guy person, so,
Okay, so can we thank Shirley again?
Right, thank you.